feeling myself, but I stay in my lane. I know you thinking you nice, but you sounding the same. He need to switch up his flow, but I know that he ain't. Shit, maybe he want to and probably can't. He talk a lot, but ain't saying a word. He's 16, sounding like he be lacing his herbs. Reggie Rock told me time to just focus and spit. Quit worrying about the niggas abandoning shit. I dropped broken and they told me quit biting your tongue. The way you writing sounded like you forgot where you from. Say you from the hood, but you sound like a minister now. Yeah, I could take it there, but shit, I just like how this sound. I should address some of this drama, but letting it go. Shit, I can't keep playing with you niggas, I'm getting too old. The last words Bone told me I never forget. Quit playing with this music and do it to death. Shit, I came back.
You're now watching the End of the Bench podcast, Build and Destroy, hosted by your man, H-Rap-B. Good evening. This is H-Rap-B. This is from End of the Bench Media. Thank you for tuning in. It's going to be an interesting show. It is a pleasure to bring this to you every week. This is part 2 of a series, a 3-part series called Did Integration Interrupt Our Freedom? Because it didn't stop it just interrupted. It's a pause button, but the integration interrupt our freedom. The reason I want to do this is because I think we need to address certain things in our community that we haven't in the past. There'll be various opinions about what I say tonight, but what I definitely want to do is bring up the conversation. See, the thing is, it seems as if in our community, we have an issue with having that conversation. And the conversation is very important. This week, we're going to do community education, culture, community. The reason I want to cover these 3 topics is education is not just in the school. Community is who we are, and culture is what we are, what is baked in what we are. Culture is not just dance and dress and things of that nature. Music, culture is everything that we do. And when you inculcate everything that we do, it will bring about a better human being, if you ask me. Of course, that's kind of oxymoronic to say, if you ask me, because it's my opinion that came out of my mouth. So clearly, that's my opinion. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. As we know already, we are in a situation too, whereas I used to be in the community that we used to shout out names, things of that nature. I don't do that. It's not to disparage anyone from tuning in. It's just I do believe what I have to say is far more important than you hearing your name every week. Now, what I do is acknowledge my ancestors. Who are my ancestors? That is everybody connected to the Williams family. That is my father, John Williams, and my mother, Dolores Bourne, Dolores Pollard. The reason I do that because I am the sum total of each and every individual that has ever passed through my lineage, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's something else I'm going to talk about when we talk about education and culture. Education and culture is most important. Education of your family. See, we have been confused in believing that the education that we receive in these places called schoolhouses or academic institutions, that is the pure education. That is not. That is not. The true education comes from your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, cousins, and neighbors, because that history, that the mathematics and the science of that community is what will trigger you. What we do is we focus on the negative aspects of life far too much, if you ask me. And what I mean by that is this: we will identify what's wrong with us. We will identify what's wrong with the community. We will identify the flaws and everything that is connected to us, but we do not educate ourselves on our greatness. See, just like you can be watching a movie about sexual assault or abuse or slavery, or the ugly portions of slavery, and it'll trigger you. Like me, I'm claustrophobic. Maybe that is a trigger from an ancestor of mine being entrapped in the hull of a ship or being put in a box as a punishment or something of that nature, and it triggers me. But guess what? The greatness inside of you needs to be triggered as well. everything that's great about you needs to be triggered as well. So if we educate ourselves on who we are and where we come from and how long we've been here and the things that we've done, maybe just maybe those triggers, and it's no, excuse me, it's not a maybe just maybe. We will definitely be triggered by the greatness, and that will bring about more greatness, so we can share those things. And education in its purest form, or in its traditional form, right? That's what we're going to talk about initially. Education is being it is being dismantled. The reason education is being dismantled is because the more ignorant the populace is, the easier it is to control them. You have people who look at religious books and it's a mind control. They're just trying to screw you over. They're trying to control you. And depending upon who you have educating you on that, it is a control. Now, if you have someone who's educating you from the direct portion of that religion, then they're trying to enhance you. And that's what education does. It enhances you. When you look at the control portion of this, you have to go to Eastern Europe. And when you look at Eastern Europe, you had 2% of the population, 2% of the people on the entire continent, which is not really a continent. I thought a continent had to be surrounded by bodies of water all the way around, and that's just not the case. But we're not going to get into that. We're not going to split hairs. They control their population by telling them what they wanted to know. You can take bits and pieces out of anything. I'm going to share scripture with you a little later in the cultural portion of this, and it will help and enhance you, and that's what the scripture is for. Now, when you look at education as we receive it now, 20%, it affects 20% of the population in the classroom. 20% is documented. This isn't an HRAP thought. With the way lecture style education, look it up, lecture style education. Lecture style education affects 20% of the classroom. That means 80% of us are sitting there wondering what's really going on. You traditionally learn from your peers more anyway. How many times have you been sitting in the classroom and the teacher's gone over some things and you turn to your friend and say, what did they mean? Or after class, hey, what was going on with that? Because your peers will educate you better than somebody who's an authoritarian figure. It's just the way it works. You will talk to your siblings. Yes, your parents can tell you something and your sibling can tell you something else. And you tell you the same thing and you'll accept it from your sibling because for whatever reason, we reject it from our parents. So in an educational sense, I could just take you back to 1960. W.B. Du Bois, 1960, in front of he was in front of a council at John Smith University. He said, at some point, the laws will change. And then you'll be incorporated into other classrooms. It'll be integrated classrooms. And that'll be to our detriment. Why would it be to our detriment? Because they will do away with the instructors who see us as human beings. They will do away with the instructors who have our best interests in mind. And I'm not saying anybody from any other culture doesn't have our best interests in mind, but there's certain things, there's certain idiosyncrasies about people in our community that you and I can identify with and other cultures cannot. That's just the way it works. That is the way the world works. Jewish people, Italian people, Irish people, people of African descent, people who are indigenous to this land, and so forth and so on. People can identify with their culture. That's just the way it works. But when you do away with those academics and then people in those classrooms who can identify, just like last year in one of the parishes in New Orleans, a bunch of elder men went to the school. It was a ton of fights, ton of violence, this outburst, and those men just came to the school and stood around. They just stood around, and the younger people saw those men. And one of the young ladies interviewed by a newscaster said, he just gave us the look. Now, if you don't know, I don't have to explain to people in my community what the look is. There's a certain look that elders give us, and it will tighten us up. For lack of a better term, it will tighten you up without saying a word. And that is what's missing. When you integrate school, what they did was get rid of 62% of the principals. They got rid of about 62% of the educators. And then they brought in people who were not familiar with the people in our culture. They were not familiar with how to handle us and handle our youth. And then what happens? You, as W.B. Du Bois said, the youth will be disengaged from the academic process. And then that's when the problem will come. You'll be able to identify the problem. It's not a economic problem. It is a cultural and a race problem. We refuse to address this race issue in the United States of America, and that's why the people in our community will continue to suffer. Look, there's certain things about me that most of the people that are watching this, and most of the people who will watch this from my community, know certain idiosyncrasies about me and without even knowing me. There's certain things that I know about you that we don't even have to communicate with. We could look at each other from across the room. We could only be two of us in the room. We can identify, and bam, we'll know exactly what's going on. Is that a bad thing? It is definitely not. See, these are the educational tools that I'm talking about. This is how you enrich yourself. When you have those things in regards to education, you can educate a Black child. There are certain things that you know about your niece, nephew, cousins, friends, and family members. And hey, you can speak to them in a different language. I've used this example on several occasions. You can sit in a room full of sisters. You can have a elder sister, you can have a middle-aged sister, you have a young adult sister, and a young sister. They all sit in a room. If you say something out of the way, they can just go, Now, to the outside of the culture, means absolutely nothing. But me and you and other people in our culture, we know exactly what that means. Means I agree. Means you lying. Means get out my face. Means I can feel that. I understand. And see, these are the little idiosyncrasies that when we educate our children, and the people who educate our children, when they are part of our community, they know these things. They also know, can also mean in a classroom, I know your mother, I need you to relax. See, these are the things that are missing in the academic experience. And when you're missing those things, people will miss out on the education that they duly deserve and duly need. These are the things that we must recapture. How do we recapture those things? By not limiting education to our schools. Certain things, maybe we should rethink the process. Certain things that should be introduced to our young people far before they get in front of any instructor in the history of the world. Now, we know we'll teach our children colors, we'll teach our children the basic numbers and things of that nature. Have you ever thought about teaching your children the importance of the history of your family? Again, as I stated at the top of the program, there are certain things about you that you don't even know because we didn't take the time to respect our elders. Our elders hold the key. Mbate Pot in his book said, every time one of our elders transitions and we don't document everything about their lives, it's like a library burning to the ground. Imagine that. If you were just learning to read and you walked up on a library and it burnt to the ground, and before you ever got to open any of the books, all that knowledge in that building is destroyed. It is no longer existent. So this is part of the education that I feel we need to reestablish. See, it's easy to go into a book, Ned and the First Reader. Remember Ned the First Reader? If you're a parent, you know Ned and the First Reader. See Ned run, run Ned run. That's Ned and the First Reader, right? Curious George. It's easy to learn those things. You can learn the basics words: hats, cat, dog, bird, rat. These simple one-syllable words, and you teach your children how to read. And reading isn't just saying the words. Reading is understanding the words that you're saying, right? But what about the education of your community? Who used to live in your community? Your grandfather, your grandmother. You know what? A lot of us potentially come from single parent homes. A lot of us come from homes in which our parents' lives were cut short because we were on the way. What happens to the teenage mom who turns her life, she gets pregnant at 16, 17 years old. She had big dreams, but all of a sudden she's pregnant now. And then she pulls herself up by her bootstraps. She locks in. She finishes high school. She goes on to get a college degree. She goes on to get a great career, and she provides for her children. And her children live a great life. And guess what? Some of these young ladies even have a man right there with them and help raise the children with them. And then they lived a great life. But guess what? Before you, I, and our other people were on the way, that young lady and that young man potentially had dreams. Now, that person that's with them helped enhance those dreams and helped enhance that family, and they are happy in what they achieved outside of their dreams. But what about their dreams? What if you, like my grandmother was an excellent seamstress. It was at one point in my life, I didn't know that all clothes didn't say made by Dolores Pollard. That is my grandmother, not my mother is a junior. Made by Dolores Pollard. I didn't know that wasn't abnormal. I didn't know that was abnormal to have your grandmother's name in all your clothes. But guess what? She could be a seamstress. But guess what? My mother came along, and then my Uncle Richard came along, then my Aunt Rita came along, and we don't know what my grandmother wanted to be before she was that. So my mother was a teenage mom, and then she went on to help run the Department of Child Support Enforcement. What did my mother want to be? And we're not talking to our elders, and we're not speaking to the talents that is baked inside of these people. That is the education I think we need. Versus, look, we all need reading, arithmetic, we need science, we need arts, we need all of that. That will help you be a better individual. That will help you be a more well-rounded individual. But the education that you need more than anything is the education of who and what you are. My pastor is a friend, a mentor, a spiritual guide. He's an excellent singer. He's a musician as well. But guess what? These are not just attributes that'll be beneficial, that'll be beneficial to what you can do and what you have to do and be the best person you can be. Now, these are the things that education will help you with. I know people who can do a myriad of things. I am what they call loquacious, which means a blabbermouth. It's a real fancy way to say I don't know how to shut up, right? But guess what? Maybe it's somebody, maybe my father. I never had a chance to meet my father. Maybe my father was loquacious. I found out, as I mentioned last night on the forecast, I found out that my father was a very talkative individual. I mean, he was a very talkative individual, and I have characteristics that match him. For example, when I get angry, I lean my head to the left, and what my aunt called pout. Now, she didn't mean it in a negative way. There wasn't a disparaging comment. She said, "You just pout just like your dad." I didn't know that. It took me 53 years to find that out. But just imagine had I taken the time while I took care of my mother for a couple of years before she died. What if I had taken the time to ask my mother to get the education on my dad? I've been educated about my father through my son. Strangely enough, my son looks more like my dad than me. I found out things about me through my son, watching my son, and figured out that's what my dad must have been doing. See, we don't take the time to understand who our parents are. Some of our parents are master builders. Some of our parents are creative. Some of our parents are people who can do anything in the history of the world. And we will be stuck because we allow other people to educate us, other people to dictate who we are. They will say, you will never amount to this, and you can't do this, and this is what's wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with you. You just don't have the education about who you are so you can be the best you can be. See, this is the education that we're speaking about. What I would like to make a suggestion is this. Going forward, if we have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and cousins, how about this? We create a binder. This is your grandmother. This is your grandmother. This is your grandfather. This is your grandfather. And list the attributes of these people if you know them. And once you do that, it will trigger. This will create hopefully a question in this child. Well, what about this and what about that? And you can learn about your lineage as well as educate your child. It creates a bond, and it also triggers the creativity in your child. I don't, it's not that I don't care about the academic portion of education, because I do. I do. It is important. Everything is important in regards to education. It's all about practical application. Why do you need to learn mathematics? You need to learn mathematics because mathematics teaches you. We traditionally think like this. We think forward, backward. We think up, down. We think left, right. That's just the way we naturally think. But math teaches you how to think in an angle. You are unilaterally thinking. That's what mathematics is for. The thinking that will get you a different process. Again, everybody knows how to get from point to the quickest, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Everybody understands that. But math teaches you how to create that straight line. Understandable. Then, how does math tie into history? Math ties into history simply because you will be able to back map history. History is important because it will tell you where you were and what led you to the path that you're on presently. Now, you got where you were and how did you get on the path that you're on presently, and it'll teach you how to navigate the future, because the mistakes you made in the past put you right here. Or the things that you did in the past, they don't necessarily have to be mistakes. It got you right here where you are today. And it will teach you how to navigate those same pitfalls in the future. That's why history is important. Again, these are the important things in life. Now, science. Science teaches you how to put together, how to not, once you, as you go to the future, navigate, you can take pieces of this, you can take pieces of the past, pieces of the past, pieces of the present, and then it will help you put together things that'll help you be in the future. Why is English important? English is important because if you want to document for your children so they won't hit those same pitfalls, you'll be able to document it in properly, and you'll be able to put a comma, a semicolon. You'll be able to use proper English so anybody who can read this will be able to understand. This is why it is practical application. So the school education is practical, but the education on who you are is not practical. It is always not practical, and it's not going to put you in the best portion or the best situation so you can be in the best possible situation. See, what we're going to do, hopefully, is put ourselves in situations so we can take advantage of who we are and what we've done as a community, as a culture, and we will be as a family, as a tribe, and we'll be able to stop all this nonsense. Like, these kids are crazy. The young people are not crazy. The young people are unguided. The young people aren't focused. The young people have issues with what's going on right now because they were not properly trained. And guess what? A lot of that pushback that they give the system is embedded in them because the system isn't working for them. And the system isn't designed for them. And the system isn't for their betterment. The system is technically for their destruction. And they have innate ability to reject that system. But again, if you have that history, if you have that science of who you are, and then you can navigate through the future, and those young people will be able to navigate through these situations and put themselves in better situations. This is why education, not just in the school, in your family, your medical history, your spiritual history, your physical history, everything is important. This is why education is key. This is why the people who are in charge of this country currently are trying to do away with history. That's history means. Now, they're not trying to do away with science. They're not trying to do away with mathematics, but they're definitely trying to do away with history. History empowers you. History will empower each and every individual in the history of the world. Trust and believe. You can be the worst thing in the world. You can have a difficult path. I'm not going to say worse. You can be a drug addict, you can be an alcoholic or something of that nature. And that's not horrible because, hey, nobody's perfect. Most of us addicted to sugar. Some of us addicted to snacks. But see, when you get fat, you living a good life. But if you using drugs, you're doing a bad thing, but you're killing yourself in both instances. So let's not, excuse me for saying that. But let's just say you're alcoholic. But if you know the history of your family, you understand this might be out of my control. I might be genetically predisposed to be in this situation. And when you're genetically predisposed to be in that situation, then at that point, you can fix it. This is where, education is tying into everything you need to do. History ties into everything you need to do. Now, you may have a lack of focus in something. You may be disinterested. Some things that you learn in school will just, they won't touch you. I'm a perfect example of that. 4th grade, 1980, Miss Bullock's class. Open up a book. It was a blue book called Chicago. For whatever reason, I thumbed through this book at age 10. I did not see one black person in that book. I took the 0. Here's the sad part. Social studies was my favorite class. Well, was my favorite point of study. But when we went in Miss Bullock's class and she pulled out that Chicago book, she maybe put it out once a month. That week, I took the 0. Thank God. Because of who my mother was, there was other portions of social studies so I could pull the grade up, but I would just refuse to do it because I couldn't relate to it. Years later, I find out in Tucson, Arizona, the Chicano community, they had 80% dropout rate. I mentioned this last week, an 80% dropout rate. And they start inculcating and diversifying the curriculum and bringing the Chicano history in and bringing in Chicano people into the classroom academically. And guess what? Now they're graduating at an 80% clip. You got more than 50% of them going to college. See, this is why education and history is key. When you bring me into the book, I am engaged. Now, at age 10, I can't tell you I was academically astute enough to understand what I was doing. And again, it goes back to who I am. Maybe it's my dad. My dad was a fighter in the movement. If you know what the movement is, look it up. The civil rights movement, things of that nature. He was part of the Black Panther Party, self-defense. He was part of other cultural organizations that were for the advancement of our people. Maybe it was just him. Maybe it was his spirit interjecting itself into me. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I did understand. I do understand that even at age 10, I rejected it, and because I didn't see me. Now, a lot of us will just bring it about, and engulf it, and then you'll just suck it in, regurgitate it, pass the test Friday, and it's all gone. But I am a person with a relatively good memory. That foolishness would have stuck with me forever, like the foolishness of George Washington being a great man. George Washington was not a great man. George Washington was a man who had enslaved African people, and he would move them around from point to point so they could never be set in one place, and he'll always have them as indentured servitude. George Washington also took the teeth, like they tell you, George Washington had wooden teeth. No, he didn't. He took the teeth out of live enslaved Africans and used dentures out of their teeth. These are live people. He taking teeth out of their mouth. So now Thomas Jefferson was a child molester. He had a 14-year-old Sally Hemings and impregnating her and took her all over the world. He kept his own children enslaved. So these are the things that Abraham Lincoln is a clear racist. When you find out what he said about why he was trying to free enslaved Africans and how he offered $300 to each African who was ready to go back to Liberia. Well, in essence, it became Liberia. See, you were told all these lies about these great men, and these great men are not so great. And when you find out what they did and what they've done to you and how it still affects you, you will stand up and fight everything that they stand for. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. You may agree, you may disagree, you may like it, you may like it. It is what it is. But these are the truths. And these are the things that you need to understand. This will empower. That's why I want our people to stop saying, I don't want to see any more slave movies. Now, I want to see as many enslaved movies as you can put in Hollywood. You know why? Because guess what? Remember think about the worst butt whooping you ever got in your life. Did you do that again? No, you didn't. Not because it was great to get a beating, but you remembered the pain it inflicted on you. So we need to remember the pain that was inflicted upon our ancestors so we can never have to deal with those situations again. Point blank, period, end of story. See, once you get engaged, once you grab hold to this pain, you'll never let it go. And so now, like some of us disagree with the sagging of pants. Then some of us agree with the inability to dress appropriately. We look at all these things, but those things will never be a part of the lexicon of the Black community if you understand the pain and the anguish that your ancestors, or they'll be reduced, because there's always going to be outliers. They'll be reduced. And when you reduce those things, you'll uplift the community. When you uplift the community, you put yourself in a situation to whereas you will always be at the top. We're already at the top, but then once you realize how great you are, you'll never allow somebody to tell you you belong at the bottom. See, this is what we have been fed lies for centuries, literally for a couple centuries. So what we need to do is do away with those lies and put ourselves in situations to whereas we can be the best. We can live up to our lineage. What I'm going to do now is show you a video of your lineage, show you how great this is inside of you, and realize it's inside of you. When I come back, we're going to talk about, we already talked about history and education. We're talking about culture. And then we're going to talk about community and culture. And then we get up out of here because y'all know at 7 o'clock, me and Jesus got an appointment. This is your man, A-Trap. I'll be back shortly.
The Black Excellence and Abundance Channel. In 247 BC, the year Hannibal Barca was born, the Carthage Empire was about 500 years old. Known as one of the greatest strategists in military history, the battles of Hannibal would strike a turning point in the history of the continent that will be called Africa.
Carthage had been settled by Phoenicians in North Africa near the current-day Tunisia. In his 1961 work, French historian Gabriel Adisio comments that he considered Hannibal to be a North African. The majority of the Punic populace seems to have had African, indeed Negroid, ancestry.
It is said that the Phoenicians were a Semitic people said to have migrated into northern Africa.
Archaeologists have found coins portraying Hannibal's Carthaginian features. Analysis of the coins found in Italy near the battle site of Lake Trasimene, where Hannibal's Carthaginian army defeated the Romans, shows an African man on one side with the characteristic strong African features such as curly hair, thick lips, and full nose. On the coin's opposite side are elephants. These coins were all carbon dated around the time that Hannibal was alive.
Hannibal's life was dedicated to fighting the Roman Empire. His father, Hamilcar, introduced him to the Roman wars and trained him in the Carthaginian army. Rome was always a threat to Carthage, and the Barca family fought against them throughout their lives. When Hamilcar introduced Hannibal to the army, he made him swear to maintain Rome as an enemy. After his father's death in the Mercenary War, Hannibal decided to fight to earn the lost respect of Carthage, and he traveled to Spain to seek support. It would not be long before Hannibal Barca soon integrated into the Spanish army, and his efforts paid off in a victory over Rome in the First Punic War. The fire in his heart to defeat Rome was real, and he kept his promise to his father to always fight Rome. His aim to earn respect and freedom for Carthage was also achieved. Make no mistake, Hannibal was not only an efficient and capable soldier, but he was also well educated, often proving that the pen is mightier than the sword. He was a great scholar. While his father taught him everything he needed to know about the military and war, his teachers were the key contributors to his all-around development. Hannibal made literary contributions mainly in the field of military books, but was also a keen observer of languages. As he spoke many languages, he committed many of his great battle plans to paper, and being such a military enthusiast, Barca created a manual for the defense of roads. Hannibal Barca was one of the greatest generals of the ancient world and came close to destroying Rome long before it became an empire.
His strategic methods and intelligence earned him the title of the father of strategy. Hamilcar, his father, taught him to respect his country, and this loyalty made Hannibal one of the greatest threats the Roman Empire has ever seen. Hannibal had an abundance of elephants in his army, most of which were African elephants. These elephants were much larger in size than the Asian elephants, which his enemies used. However, he rode on an Asian elephant, for he believed that the battlefield could be viewed best from that height. This particular elephant only had one tusk, thus it was named Surus. Hannibal felt an affinity with Surus as the elephant was missing a tusk, and Hannibal, who had lost an eye in a previous fight, also only had one eye. His elephant proved fatal to his enemies, as they were as efficient as any sword on the battlefield. These giant fighting machines were the forerunners and the model for the modern-day tank that is used in war today. Using elephants in battle gave Hannibal a huge advantage. In October of 218 BC, during the Second Punic War, Hannibal had arrived at the Alps. His soldiers were said to have stretched for more than 8 miles at the Alps foothills of the Roman Empire. Many of Hannibal's strategies and war tactics are still in use to this day. Hannibal's greatest victory came on the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC. The fact that the battle happened at Cannae was no accident. The Romans had used the ruined citadel as a food magazine for various critical items, such as grain oil. Hannibal knew the importance of Cannae and began marching towards it from his camp, which was around 75 miles away. A food magazine is a military store for arms, ammunition, explosives, and provisions for use in military. Hannibal was aware that the Romans were still dependent on the grain in Italy. However, Hannibal's arrival at Cannae changed things. Once the Romans arrived and the fighting started, Hannibal's forces annihilated the Romans. To this day, the battle at Cannae is still believed to be the biggest loss of human life during a single day in battle history. Hannibal Barca belonged to a family whose legacy was marked by its military achievements, and Hannibal was able to continue this legacy with the respect he earned during his lifetime. He was amongst the greatest commanders in chief, not only for his victories, but also for his attitude and bravery. The Black Excellence and Abundance Channel, where Black history is every day.
Thanks for watching.
Hello, this is your man Intrap. I'm back at you. Thank you for watching that video. It's important that we learn things of that nature, and that's what I was talking about. This is why history is important. You may, if you're a certain age, you remember that TV show called The A-Team. And knowing a TV show called The A-Team, you'll realize they used that man Hannibal as the most courageous guy in the history of the world. And he was the leader of the A-Team, and he knew everything about war and things of that nature. And you never knew that was a black dude. See, this is why I say you learn about yourself and you tap into that situation. And when you tap into that situation, you put yourself in a better situation physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because once you realize the people who look like me were able to conquer anybody and anyone in their way, create anything, create astrology, create mathematics, create irrigation, create all kinds of medicines and things of that nature. And I'll talk about the medicines in a second. This push you in a situation to whereas you'll realize how great you truly are. And if you realize how great you truly are, you're unstoppable. See, this is why the education of your history, having your history at your hand, at your foot, at your disposal, push you in the best possible situation. You will never know how great you can be until you understand how great you were, the greatness that you come from. There's certain things about you that you don't even know because a lot of us did not take the time to understand who we were. I got a homeboy named Craig. Craig, he was able to grab hold to his grandfather and understand his grandfather was an excellent businessman. And by knowing him, he's an excellent businessman, he was able to realize the greatness that was in front of him. He also has a father who's an attorney. He also has a mother who was an ad exec and things of that nature. This puts him in a position to understand his greatness, and it propelled him into greatness. And when you know those things about yourself and you know those things about life, what happens is this. You put yourself in a position to be nothing but successful. You'll understand that no matter what someone says about you, whatever news program, whatever statistic people throw at you, you can be a mason, you can be an electrician, you can be an inventor, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a public speaker, you can be a politician, you can be an attorney, you can be anything that you want to be. But what you have to know is the greatness that lies inside of you. The last thing I'm going to talk about is culture. Culture is important because without culture, we're nothing. We'll put ourselves in these situations every day and not understand our culture. We've been trained to believe culture is exclusively the way we dress, the flair that we have, and certain things of that nature, the music that we play. No, culture is your ancestry. Culture is the way you prepare your food, the way you clean your home, the way you do everything that's about us. For example, for years, I mean, literally for a minimum of 1 century, we were known as dirty. So black people over-index in cleaning products. Did you even know? You probably didn't even know that. One of the reasons our parents and grandparents are so stern in regards to cleaning, because it has been passed down for generation after generation that we were not clean. So we were over-indexed on cleaning products. Now, not to mention that the people like the Moors and other African nations went into Europe and helped clean up the Black Plague and teaching people how to bathe and things of that nature. But we were over-indexed. But that is part of our culture, being cleanly. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Is part of our culture. Something else that's part of our culture: spirituality, monotheology, the study of one God. The study of one God is a African tradition. It was created in Africa. Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, all started on the continent. It all started on the continent, but you're not told that. There are 2 verses of the Bible. That's one thing called the slave Bible, and that was to enslave you, because they only gave you pieces and portions of the good word to enslave you and put you in a position, and they'll take out certain excerpts and then give them to you. Obey your master and things of that nature. And they had the Master's Bible, the true and living word of God. So this will enhance and uplift you at all costs. All you have to do to understand what our culture is go to Romans. I'm going to say it slowly. Romans 13, chapter 8 through 10. This will give you the blueprint on what you need to be as a community. It teaches you how not to covet someone's wife. It teaches you how not to bear false witness. It teaches you how to love your neighbor as you would love yourself, and things of that nature. When you start applying those things, those principles that come straight from the word of God, you will be in a better position. Oh man, I don't believe in that Bible because the Bible is this and the Bible is that. But guess what? Defy that. Defy what I just gave you. Romans 13. Chapter 8 through 10. Defy it if you like. Tell me when lying should be a good thing. Trust me. I know. Costs me a lot. Tell me when you are in a situation where you coveting somebody else's things or wife or anything. Tell me when that's a good thing. It's never a good thing. Tell me how you can go wrong by showing the people who are around you the same love you'll show for yourself. Meaning, how many of y'all will let a child run into the middle of the street and hurt himself? You won't. You won't. If you are a human being, you won't. So stop trying to debunk things and accept them for what it is. If nothing else, use the scripture and the word of God as an allegory, a lesson in life. Look, these are the things that'll help you be the best you can be at all times. And if you don't choose to use them, then that's on you. I understand. We consistently put ourselves in situations to whereas we cannot take advantage of the lessons that have been taught to us each and every day. But guess what? A lot of us, we love the great doctor, our ancestor, the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We love our ancestor, Malik Al-Shabazz, aka Malcolm X. We love people like Marcus Garvey. We love people like Adam Clayton Powell and other people. These people, all of their movements, the civil rights movement is rooted in a spiritual movement. The Nation of Islam is a spiritual movement. Marcus Garvey had a spiritual awakening, and he had that movement. And I can go chapter, book, and verse. Nat Turner, last month, August, was the 158th anniversary of the revolt that Nat Turner started. Then Vesey, Morris Brown. I'm not doing this because Morris Brown. Y'all know my connection to Morris Brown. I'm not saying this because Morris Brown is Morris Brown. I'm talking about he's the second bishop black bishop in the AME church. He's one of the only people in the academic circle in Atlanta, Georgia, where Spelman, Morehouse, and those institutions are. Clark Atlanta. He's the only one of those institutions that's named after a black person. See, all of these movements, and when you think of the AME church that they got shot up a couple of years ago, Denmark Vesey, he's the person who started. He was a leader of that church, and he created that church, established that church. He created the church, he established that church, and he created the largest enslaved revolt in the history of the world. 3,800 people. Somebody snitched on that. We covered that last night. Meritos manumission. We'll cover that at another time. Go back and watch other episodes, and you'll understand what marital manumission is. See, these are the things that will empower you. Now, our culture is not just style. Oh man, he's a great dresser. He's the coolest dude in the world. Nah, that's not our culture. That's part of our culture. But our culture, and I personally believe the most important portion of our culture is this. The fact that at one point, while we lived in the northern part of the country, we lived in Chicago or Cleveland or Milwaukee or St. Louis or New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and so forth and so on. We would all migrate back to our grandmother's house. It would teach you about your history. I talked to my man's mother a few weeks ago. She gave us a flat out history in about 15 minutes. It was one of the most enriching conversations I've ever had in my life. And then the murder of Emmett Till slowed down the remigration back to the South. At one point, we used to send our children back to the South. They would pick up Southern values. They would pick up Southern ways of doing things. They would pick up manners. They would pick up hard work, and then they would come back and you would tell your friends about the experiences that you had in the South. And now all of a sudden, we hardly ever as a culture send our children back down South. You know why? Guess what? Walking on that land, talking to those elders, embracing those family members, it creates community. It gets you education in regards to history, and it creates a culture of love. That may be what's missing. And do I have all the answers? I'm not going to pretend that I do. But what I do know is this. When we used to engage with our brothers and sisters and our ancestors in the South, we had a better situation. We didn't look down at the people from Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and Kentucky and so forth and so on. We embraced those people. We couldn't wait to get down there. At one point, how many of your friends and neighbors couldn't wait to go visit their people? Do we do that anymore? Guess what? Walking on that ground, walking on that hollow ground where some of our people were hurt, some of our people were damaged, some of our people were prosperous. But we need to have these things to inflict that pain so we will never experience again, that education so we'll be enriched, and that love so we can be better people. Not only do we do that, as you ever notice, a lot of our ancestors who are from the South live a lot longer than the people up north. Could it be because your kitchen table is your medicine cabinet? Could it be that that's part of our culture as well? Your kitchen table used to be your medicine cabinet. How many of your aunts, uncles, grandparents used to eat onion soup? Guess why? Onions are good for your heart. A lot of those people ate a lot of vegetables. Vegetables help continue the blood flow. Guess what? A lot of them eat ginger. Why are you eating ginger? That's nasty because ginger is an anti-inflammatory. So you got joint aches and back aches. You eat a couple pieces of ginger, it reduces the swelling in your body. Beets, a lot of them eat beets. Beets is a natural reducer of blood pressure. Cucumbers. See, your kitchen table can be your medicine cabinet, but you learn that because your grandmother, your grandfather, guess what? Antidepressants, legumes, beans. These, when you're stressed, beans relax you. Maybe that's why our ancestors lived a little longer than we live currently. Modern medicine got you believing you can take a pill to do everything that you need. But guess what? Modern medicine didn't tell you that beets could help you with your blood pressure. Lettuce, cucumbers, and things like that flush it out. Watermelon. Get this. Watermelon is probably the most resourceful piece of fruit in the history of the world. And you were shamed from eating it, but a lot of us didn't realize our ancestors, when they were no longer enslaved, they said, we're not eating that slop they gave us. We're going to eat watermelon. And they made watermelon a bad thing because watermelon replenishes you in regards to water, gives you tons of vitamins and nutrients, and it flushes your body. Flow is the key. One of the reasons you have diabetes is because the flow has been reduced. When the flow is reduced, you get plaque. You get plaque, you get high blood pressure. You get high blood pressure, you develop diabetes. You get high blood pressure, you develop heart disease. Heart disease triggers diabetes. Diabetes can have amputated limbs and things of that nature. But guess what? Have you ever seen anybody get too fat from eating a salad? You can eat as many pieces of fruit and vegetables as you like. And ain't nobody in the history of the world said, man, oh my God, I'm 60 pounds too heavy. Why? Because I ate 50 salads. It's not going to be said. But our grandparents ate a lot of fruit. Our grandparents ate a lot of vegetables. Our grandparents ate these things, and meat was a delicacy at that point. You didn't have meat with every meal. You know why? Because meat is a little more difficult to digest. You want to know why you get tired when you eat fowl or bird, because it's an enzyme called tryptophan in that bird, and that makes you sleepy, which slows you down, which slows your flow down, which raises your blood pressure. See, these things are cyclical. These things are cyclical. But our grandparents and our aunts and our uncles and our cousins in the South, they know these things. That's why you got a 108-year-old aunt who don't eat that much meat. She might eat meat once a week, but you eat meat with every meal. Guess what? Guess another thing. When you read books, like remember I told you about the spiritual thing, you don't have to be a Muslim. You don't have to be a Jew. You don't have to be a Jehovah's Witnesses to look at the diet. Go your behind into the emergency room today and ask how many people in there from the Jewish faith. How many people in there from the Asian faith? A lot of them are not in there because they have a diet that's over 5,000 years old and they adhere to that diet. See, we don't adhere to that diet. Then we use this westernized diet and then it kills us slowly. But we're not paying attention to that because we're no longer educated about who we are, educated about who we're from, and educated by the people who brought us here. See, these are the things. This is why integration may have cost us a portion of our freedom. It may have put a pause on our freedom because when we integrated, we start integrating to the ways that they eat and not the ways that we ate. It's the reason that these things are happening. But if you take a step back and call your older uncle who just won't shut up talking about the good old days, he also going to tell you that you don't have to eat 3 times a day. Eating 3 times a day is created by the FDA. And that's not meant to rhyme, but look, if it takes, it's 24 hours in a day. If it takes 8 hours to process one meal, and it takes 8 hours to sleep, and it takes 8 hours to work, why in the entire hell are you eating 3 times a day? It makes no sense. Most times, and this is a medical fact, most times when your body is saying you're hungry, you're really thirsty. Ask your doctor. Don't take it from me. Talk to your doctor. Hey, me and my man was talking yesterday. Everybody needs their own personal physician. Not urgent care, not emergency room, a physician that you can call and ask questions because you're having problems. 8 hours a day. If it takes 8 hours to digest one meal, why would you eat 3 times a day? That means, look, if you got a baby in your family, that's what I want you to do. Feed that baby. 20 minutes later, everything that baby did, his body is not used, his or her body is not using, is out of his body. That's the way you need to be processing food. That's why we have these stomachs, present company included. That's why we have fat around our hearts and around our arms and behind our arm. That's because our body is no longer receiving the minerals and the nutrients and the zinc and the magnesium. Zinc helps you sleep. Magnesium helps you sleep. These are the things that are helping you. It's not just extracting what you need and removing from your body what you don't. These are the educations that your parents give you. These are the things that help your parents, your grandparents, nieces and nephews. All these things help you be the best you can be. So this is why I started this series, and next week will be the last portion of the series. Then it's back to politics as usual. But not just exclusively politics, but you know what I mean. This is why we must continue to reach back and talk to the people. Did you know your grandfather had a trucking company? Did you know your grandmother used to be a seamstress? Did you know your grandmother wanted to be a politician? Did you know your grandmother uncle had straight A's until he was drafted into the military? Did you know that your uncle was a marksman? Did you know your brother knew how to do this? You had an older brother that's much older than you because your mother had him way before you. He was an adult when you got here. Did you get information from him? These things will make you the best person you can be if you use those tools. If you don't, we will continue to struggle and continue to be falling upon the tyranny that is willed upon us and in the system that is attempting to destroy us each and every day. I'm just letting you know, folks. Look, do H-Rap have all the answers? Nope. Could H-Rap be wrong about everything that he said? I could be, but I doubt it. I look into the things that I say. I don't just sit in front of you guys every Tuesday and say, okay, let me blurt out some foolishness. No, I'm just asking you, look into it. Don't take my word for it. Look into it. Look into everything I say. Come on here, prove me wrong, and make me look like a fool. And then I got to change. But I guarantee you, if you start talking to the elders of your family, I bet you start being sick and in a lot of pain. I bet you they have some fruits and nuts. Look, fruits, nuts, beans are antidepressants. Fruits, nuts, beans, antidepressants, y'all. If you ate more beans, you'd be less depressed. If you ate more beans, it'll get through your system faster. If you ate more beans, you'll reduce your diabetes. You ate more beans, it's good for your heart. You ate more beans, it will put you in a better state of mind, a better physical, mental, and spiritual situation. And guess what? You ain't got to take diabetes, that metformin madness. You ain't got to take pills for your blood pressure. You might not have acid reflux and things of that nature. See, we cannot eat the diet from another culture and expect it to work on us. End of story. You can make it racial. You can make it anything you want. But all I need you to do is debunk what I'm saying by going to talk to your family practitioner and say, hey, do beans help my blood pressure? Is beans in that? Is it an enzyme in beans that'll help me be more relaxed? And he'll say, yep. You know what's funny? I hear a lot of people complain about the price of food. You know what ain't going up? Beans. You know what ain't going up a lot? Vegetables. It's amazing how meat is through the roof, but you keep buying it and you know meat killing you. Chicken, oh man, they got all them chemicals and you know all the stuff they put in the cows, and your behind keep eating it though. So you're trying to die. But if you was talking to your grandmother, just go to one of your great relatives, your grandmother's sister, your grandmother, your uncle, one of them, and just sit there and watch them eat for a week. Go over that dinner time for a week. And if you change to what they eat, maybe you'll be 85, 90 years old too one day. I'm just saying, man. Look, return to the roots, and we'll get things, and we'll be in a better situation. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. It was great to do this. Y'all know it's almost 7 o'clock. Me and JC got a meeting in 3 minutes. If you don't know who JC is, Jesus Christ, man. I'm going to Bible study. It's been great to see y'all. Y'all already know I shout out the people who give me inspiration every week. It's important that you do this. And then I'll be in Bible study. Shout out to the Ghetto Boys, Tariq Sheed, Corey Holcomb, Ray Grady, Zoe Williams, Craig Smith, Roland Martin, Sway Calloway, Clay Davis, Roland Martin, Larry Daniel Favors, and her husband, Brian. One of the most intelligent, most informed human beings I've ever come in contact with, Dr. Greg Carr, Karen Hunter, and the mayor of Black Talklandia, Joe the Black Eagle Madison. I will see you guys tomorrow. The chief seats is in effect. Right back here. Holla at your boy, me and my man Mo, with culture, conversation, meet culture, and I will be making my debut. I'll be making my debut on Wrap It Up Sports. And soon, and very soon, I will be bringing back Rapper with H-Rap. Hardest working man podcasting. I continue to tell y'all I'm here to help. I'm here to help my people because I love my people. And if you don't like what I'm saying,
you better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you.
And if you don't appreciate the stuff that I'm doing for you,
sit your ass down. Sit your ass down.
I love my people each and every day, all day, every day.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
We lust for that cheese, we lose sleep, dreams of that cream. We killing our teens, they dying for this American dream. Them government schemes, they turning us to hustlers and fiends. We hustling trees, them politicians smuggling green. Chasing that cheese, got everybody stressed in the streets. Pardon me for speaking freely, let it breathe. Evangelists preach the congregations out of their seats. They writing them checks for ties, now it's people can't eat. She stripping for change for school, now she giving them brains. She used to that loot, she earning, now she giving them strain. He new to this game, but hungry, so he cooking his cane. He getting that paper, but then they gave him 2 to the brain. It's rules to this game, but hustlers never hustle for fame. The spirit of greed is grimy, so we struggle to change. They put us in chains to take away our African names. But if we submissive and don't resist, then who do we blame? It's all a game, man. These Europeans staking they claim. And a victim of their game plan. You thinking they ain't, you thinking they saints. Remember all them niggas they hang? Killed our women and our children, all our leaders is slain. They gave us Obama, but that nigga was hoping for change. But Zimmerman is killing niggas and he free. Shit is crazy, babies having these babies and getting checked. But keep the child from they pop to rip his heart out his chest. Our rappers was leaders and now they in the booth in the dress. Spitting bullshit and making more but giving us less. They taking our sound and changing ours, dumbing it down. They taking our jobs and homes and they shutting us out. They taking our kids because it ain't a man in the house. They locking us down but soon they gon' be wiping us out. They told our women they was too independent to need a man. They told our brother he was too insignificant to advance. It's all a game, man. These Europeans staking they claim. And you a victim of their game plan. You thinking they ain't, you thinking they saints. Remember all them niggas they hang? Killed our women and our children, all our leaders is slain. It's all a game.